The pressure to know the mysteries of life. Can you let go, though, of needing to know? Delving into the details, just the facts, please. But can you resist just blurting all those details out? These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for January 10th to 16th, 2026 bring. And if you need to come up with a name for something, this cycle could be really helpful. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Human Design Whether or Not podcast with me, Margo Fraser. Last cycle, it was all about relationships around one's ambitions and ideally fostering mutually beneficial relationships that serve both you and your tribe, your community, your family, your business. However, in the first part of the cycle, we were in detriment. So when you looked out at the world at a collective level, this is where the frequency brought out ambitions that tended to break alliances in the name of power over, rather than fostering mutually beneficial alliances where the power of the whole increases. Then we moved into the frequencies of enlightenment and endarkenment, late Wednesday to late Thursday, Mountain Standard Time, followed by energy that supported creation of positive relationships towards a common goal. So you may want to reflect back on this past cycle and how you saw that play out in the world wherever you are. With this cycle, we move into the third stage of personal reflection leading up to the Human Design New Year on January 21st. I put together a set of PDFs with contemplation questions to support using these cycles to contemplate the past year with the view to support your intentions for this year. If you're interested in this, you can go to margogfraser.com/human-design to sign up to receive those. We've had a bit of a tour through some of the root traits over the past few cycles, but this cycle we're going to move up to the throat and head centers. This cycle begins January 10th at 4:50 p.m., going until January 16th at 5:20 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC, it's starting January 10th at 11:50 p.m., going until January 16th at 12:20 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We have the Sun moving into gate 61, the individual trait of mystery and inner truth in the head center. The head center is a pressure center that brings the pressure to think, to make sense in the abstract mental process, to understand in the logic process. And here in the individual circuitry, it's the pressure to know the mysteries of life. And the most important mystery, and the only one you really need to know, is the mystery of yourself. Like the inscription over the Oracle of Delphi said, know thyself. When you know yourself, you know the mystery of life because you are living it. This is knowing your inner truth. The pressure to know can be inspiring. Ultimately, this individual mental process wants silence, a quiet mind. This is when you know what you need to know. The keynote for this trait says the awareness of universal underlying principles. The awareness of universal principles refers to knowings that survive through time. The only way that they become universal is if they're shared out into the collective. If they're kept a secret, the knowing can't truly be mutative, which is the whole point of the individual circuitry, to bring through something new and mutative. This is not from our experiences. This is not from logic. It's new. So think back to ancient secret societies where knowings were constrained to those who were in that society. We lost what was known because it was never universalized. This trait's going to bring that pressure to know to the ajna center, to the mind. So in itself, it's not the process of knowing, but it inspires the thinking. Out of this pressure, the mind will contemplate and must discern what's knowable and of value, what is knowable but not of value, and what's not knowable and needs to just be left alone. There's an opportunity from this pressure to really love the mystery of life without having to rationalize everything. But watch for getting caught up in trying to know the unknowable or what's not of value and really having that take over your mind and control your life. It's something that you might feel within yourself or see play out around you this cycle. You might find that you're drawn more to occult knowledge this cycle. This is a pressure that can also bring out conspiracy theories, for better or worse. As an individual trait, this pressure could also bring out weird, wacky, creative, and out of the box thinking. But it will really take time to determine if that can be transformed into something of value. Every individual trait can drop into melancholy, and here it would be a mental melancholy over lack of inspiration. Also, remember that the individual traits operate in a pulse, and you have no control over when or if a pulse of knowing is going to drop in. So, you really have to just surrender to that. I want to mention as well here that on January 19th, Venus moved into gate 61 as well, bringing her essence of values, that there's value in knowing. And she'll be there until the 14th. Mars will move into gate 61 on January 11th. So, in its immature form, which is what we usually see play out in the world, it could bring out this aggressiveness in needing to know that I mentioned that we really have to let go of. In its mature form, though, it could bring the patience to wait and only engage with knowings of value. Although Venus is going to move out on the 14th, later that same day, Mercury moves into gate 61. So from the 11th in particular onwards, we're going to have a big increase in this pressure to know the truth of things with two planets and the sun in that gate. The other thing is that, with the exception of when the sun is in line 4, so just a reminder, there's those 6 lines that are just different forms of the expression of this trait. So other than when it's in line 4, every other line is going to get pulled into its detriment this cycle. And in this gate, the detriment can bring out this getting lost in the pressure to know, to the extent that one really loses touch with reality. It can bring the delusion that any knowing is of value when that's not really true. It can bring impatience that can even break apart relationships. It can bring trying to force others to accept what one knows. And it could also bring confusion instead of clarity. Now, gate 61 is being grounded in the Earth's position, the logical gate of details is gate 62. It's also called preponderance of the small, and it's in the throat center. Its keynote says caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. Now, this trait might sound familiar because until January 5th, we had Jupiter activating this trait for the previous few months before that. Logic is always looking into the future, looking for those formula, those theories, the opinions, the methods, rooted in fact, to carry us into the future so that we know if we do A, B, and C, we're going to get a specific result consistently and reliably. It provides us then with this sense of security. When this keynote talks about limitation, the limitation is the pattern itself. What is the correct pattern? It takes patience and detail in order to be able to understand the pattern, the formula, the method. This is in the throat center, which is about communication and expression in this case. This trait brings the possibility of the capacity to clearly communicate your opinions, your theories, the patterns that you see, with all the details and the facts, so that those that are listening can ultimately understand and then take that information and go experiment with it to see if it really holds up. Does it hold up in real life? Not just in the mental world. So, this is also the trait responsible for naming things according to a formula. So, for example, there's a pattern and characteristics that we call a tree. And when you hear someone say tree, we can all now understand what's being talked about. So here you can name things and then give the details so that we all understand what that name really refers to. This is the trait that gives us a common basis for being able to communicate with each other. It's the voice of I think or I don't think. It's a factual voice that can be reasonable or the polarity can be there, can be unreasonable. So, can it be reasoned? That's logic. The facts and the details that are expressed or articulated here allow measuring so that we can do the experiments to see if it really works. It's a trait that's very good at organizing humanity and everything around us at the intellectual level so that we can communicate with each other. But you need to wait until the details are really there. That's a process, right? Before it can be expressed out. It's a good cycle, though, to get into planning details for things coming up in the future, if that's correct for you. If you have something like a product or a service that you need to come up with a name for, it could be a really helpful cycle for that. It's also a great cycle for bringing forth your opinions and what you think with all the facts and details, if, but only if, it's been invited and it's correct according to your strategy and authority. Otherwise, there can be just this blurting out before things are fully formed and when not invited. And that's going to make it difficult to understand. You may not have all of the details sorted yet. Out of that, there's going to come doubt instead of understanding, and you might be called out for your so called facts. You may be challenged on them. There's also the potential to really get bogged down in expressing all the details to the wrong audience. And the others may just end up tuning you out because they're bored. They didn't need or want to hear all those details. And you might find yourself on the receiving end of this cycle. So bring some compassion to it in that case. You'll know what's going on. Before saying anything as part of this process of organizing the details, it can be really good to play devil's advocate with yourself to make sure that you're looking at all the possibilities to get a sense of whether that method, that theory, those facts really work. Can you project them into the future? If I do this, then what happens? Then what? Then what? Well, what if it goes this way? Oh, then what happens? Then what? So there's a real need to engage the imagination in this whole process. That's really part of it. And it's very healthy to do that. This is all mental. Keep that in mind. The theory is an action at this point, even when it's expressed. It doesn't mean that it's something that you have to take action out of. Most of the time, what comes out of our mental processes is to express out to others and for them to take it in. And if it's correct for them to take action on. It's kind of a relief, right? Most of the things we express that we don't have to do anything about. All right. If you have Gate 62 in your own design, a good education, whether that's formal or informal, is really important so you can explore and look into things and collect the details. Also, remember that just because someone can produce and express good facts and articulate them well doesn't mean they're right. It still has to be tested. So be careful that you're not taking someone's opinions and theories as correct if there hasn't been any actual testing to back it up. When we look at the sun earth positions together, well, we need to be able to eventually explain the knowings in a logical way so they can be understood. That's really what this combination brings to light. The only way for the inner truth to come out ultimately is that it has to come out factually. Otherwise, it's not truly the truth. Now, we can see a lot of bizarre and weird theories being thrown out with supposed facts that have all sorts of holes in them when you delve into them more deeply. In the collective, out there in the world, expect to see people bringing this pressure to really want to know why something happened or is happening. We're going to hear lots of details and facts being expressed. Just take things with a bit of a grain of salt and watch that you're not getting caught up in all this chatter and forgetting to check in with your own strategy and authority to determine whether it's even of value to put your energy into. Okay, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So there's a big impact. Everyone in the world is impacted. We have our long-term channel that came in December 22nd and is going to be with us until May 13th, with the south and north nodes of the moon, creating the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. The north node sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family in the emotional center, and the south node sitting in gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center, also called the heart center. This is a tribal channel that always carries this underlying theme of mutual support. So generally, you may feel an increased sense of the need for support and to support others. We're going to see in the world who's supported and who's not. This is also the channel of the marriage contract, contracts in general, and bargains. So there's going to be this emphasis on fairness in contracts, fairness in relationships. Expect to experience the related themes or see them play out in the world of loyalty and betrayal, jealousy and friendship, possessiveness and generosity, negotiation of contracts and breakdown of agreements, including marriages that are seen to be unfair. It can bring feeling taken advantage of or really feeling supported. There will be more pressure to come together in family, in community. But this is emotional, and there could be explosive emotional outbursts if someone's not feeling supported. We have heightened willpower and emotionality while this channel is present. So there could be a general pushiness to use that willpower, and greater highs and lows of emotionality. This is the design of a part seeking a whole. So you may feel more pressure to find your place in family, in community, and spiritually in the totality. Events that impact communities for better or worse are going to have heightened emotional reactions. We may see people joining communities that are not aligned for them out of just wanting to have this sense of belonging. There's also the opportunity, though, to understand in a greater way, to just sink into this and understand that living your unique design naturally gives you your place in the totality. We have two channels being created by the transit of the moon. So They're just little tasters, little samplers, and that's because the moon only activates a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. The first one actually came in last cycle, so it'll just be with us for a few hours, and then we'll go out on January 10th at 8:41 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, or January 11th at 3:41 a.m. UTC. We have the moon in gate 32, the trait of duration and continuity in the splenic center, connecting with its electromagnetic, which is gate 54, the trait of ambition in the root center, being activated by Mars. Together, they create the tribal channel of transformation, a design of being driven. This brings the energy to know what resources and talent to invest in to bring transformation towards material success and potentially spiritual transformation, ultimately for the whole of the tribe, the family, the community, the business. It can support you in attaining the next level in achieving your objectives. As a tribal trait, though, there can also be that betrayal in relationships and trying to gain power over another rather than working together for mutual empowerment that can play out here. Next, we have on January 12th coming in at 6:38 a.m. and going till 6:01 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC coming in January 12th at 1:38 p.m., going until the 13th at 1:01 a.m. The moon is moving into gate 1, the trait of the creative in the G center, the center associated with love, identity, and direction in life. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 8, the trait of contribution in the throat center. Together, they create the individual channel of inspiration, a design of a creative role model. This is part of the individual circuitry that, again, can bring something new and mutative. If you have this channel in your design, part of your role is to be a living example of uniqueness and just being yourself. This channel can support you in contributing your unique creative expression to a group. However, it's rooted in the knowing that true creative inspiration is independent of will. You can't just will true creative inspiration on demand. That's something the ego likes to think you can do. The reality is, it comes when it comes. This channel brings the opportunity to share your individual creative expression out into the world. This isn't competitive. There can't be any competition when the contribution is unique. There can also, though, be a fear that your unique contribution will be rejected, and then out of that, holding it back. Because this is a channel going to the throat, there can also be this blurting out of one's creative expression when it hasn't been invited. In that case, it's likely to be to the wrong people at the wrong time, and then won't be recognized and have that desired impact. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. And so the not self mind might start to think that they're a part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. Then when that transit moves on, oh, where'd that go? That can be confusing to the not self mind. Let's start with the nodes of the moon, which, as we discussed, are creating that long-term channel of community. We have this background of both coming together in family and community, and also potentially seeing the breakdown of those as well. These gates are in line 5. For gate 37, the trait of friendship and family in the emotional center, line 5 is called love. We may see that natural and unaffected devotion to family where friendship brings out sharing and harmony, or in the detriment where there is emotional dependency that can turn love into hatred. For gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center, the heart center, line 5 is called rigidity. This brings an environment of people wanting to do what they want to do when they want to do it to provide to their family and community and not have anyone interfere with that, including when they want to rest. And there'll be this rejection of any attempt to pull them out of that. In the detriment, which is more likely to be what we see play out in the world at a collective level, it brings an environment where providing what's needed is based on having the ego stroked, having the ego massage, with no discrimination around motives, around what's being asked for. Right? This is really a trait that needs to be picky about it. And then the detriment, it's not. Moving to the outer planets, Jupiter is in gate 53, the collective abstract trait of beginnings, where the potential to access Jupiter's expansiveness comes through starting something new that nurtures your growth when and if it's correct for you. It starts this cycle in the sixth line called phasing. That can bring the energy to attract support for beginnings based on the success of the past. Or in the detriment, there can be this pressure to hide beginnings in fear of losing past support. On January 12th at 6:14 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, Jupiter is going to move into line 5 called assertion. At a personal level, this can bring the potential for you to have that assertiveness and determination to stay on track with what you start and to be able to see it through no matter what. In that assertiveness, it can pull those who would normally oppose your direction into supporters. What we see in the detriment, which is most likely what we'll see in the collective, there's going to be this over assertiveness. I call that aggressiveness, that instead of maintaining support, actually strengthens the opposing forces in a way that results in the abandonment of the direction that one wanted to go in. So let's keep an eye on things, for example, with what US leadership is talking about in terms of strikes in Latin America and taking over Greenland. When this is present, there could be a real coalescing here of opposing forces. So we'll see what happens. Saturn sitting in gate 36, the abstract experiential trait of crisis in the emotional center. This is about entering into a new experience. You don't have the experience yet. That's what the crisis is. It's sitting in line 5 called the underground. We only have the detriment of this line playing out in the world, and it says a nervousness that can lead to self-betrayal. Now, a reminder that the energy of the solar plexus center, the emotional center, is felt as a nervousness. This is where you can get so nervous about going into a new experience or so excited that you let it go. You don't do it. That's what it means by self-betrayal. You abandon going into the experience, which could create a new crisis, a new experience you have to deal with. Because the channel of community is activating the solar plexus center, everyone's going to feel this pressure. For the 50% of you that have emotional authority in your chart, it's when nervousness has dissipated through your emotional ups and downs that you can go into an experience correctly, right? So when you get to that neutral, there's kind of an expansion. And my sense of it is having this sense of peace within myself when I get to that point. And for the 50% of you that are not emotionally defined, whether you go into an experience or not isn't determined by emotionality. It's whatever your authority is. In the collective, we're going to see crisis. We're going to see or feel the nervousness about what we're being drawn into as a collective. Uranus, with its unusual and revolutionary nature, is in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution. We talked about that in one of the channels. It's in line 4 called respect. It's where leadership qualities can be expressed and contributed by being one's unique self, even if you're not the official leader. It's where the one whose unique contribution is respected can be seen as the leader over the official or designated leader. At the personal level, this could really support your unique expression and contributing that out into the world, even if you're not seen as the leader. At the collective level, we may see the unique contribution from an unexpected individual or in an unexpected way that garners a respect that gives them impact and influence above official leaders. Uranus can be revolutionary, and a respected individual can spark a revolution. And that doesn't necessarily mean some kind of physical armed revolution or conflict. It can be a revolution in how we perceive things, how we do things. Neptune sitting in gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. It's in line 2, called the existentialist. This brings the pressure to be here now rather than worrying what will be or what was. If the ego gets involved, there can be this wanting to be recognized for one's selfless actions. At a personal level, it's support for you to be here now and be in a space of loving all things equally. This is the space and the place where you can deal with any shocks that come into your life. This is where you can access your individual spirit. Collectively, the detriment is what we're likely to see out in the world where the ego wants to be stroked and massaged and recognized for what one proclaims as selfless actions. So we're seeing selfish instead of selfless. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. It's part of the abstract experiential circuitry. It's sitting in line 2, called caution, with a developmental theme that says humanism tempered by pragmatism. Now, gate 41 is a trait of fantasy because it's the start of a new experiential cycle, a new feeling experience. But that doesn't start with just jumping into it. It starts with fantasizing and dreaming about it to begin with. And here it can be dreaming about helping others, but it has to be practical and it has to be something that eventually you can take action on. So personally, it could bring dreaming about the kind of life you'd like for yourself and for humanity, and recognition of what's really practical to bring to fruition. In the collective, the detriment can bring an expectation of gaining recognition just for having the dream, for expressing the dream you had for humanity without ever taking any action on it. Now, overall, there is going to continue to be this large impact in the world through the channel of community, bringing willpower and ego, for better or worse, and heightened emotionality, along with the crisis of the pressure to enter into something new. We may see nervousness in communities and countries, whatever that group may be, about the direction of that group. And if appropriate resources aren't being provided, love may turn to hate. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you, you can learn from it, but whether there's anything for you to actually do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it puppet you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph, what's the red and the black about, the different geometric shape, the lines that I'm talking about, again, at an overview level, get a background on the human design system, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margogfraser.com/human design. I always appreciate it if you enjoy these, if you can give it a like and subscribe if it's correct for you. All right, this is a cycle that's going to have the tendency to bring our energy up into the mind. There's a lot of pressure to know the mysteries of life out there, to know what you don't know. Do your best to focus this on understanding yourself in a greater way, and watch that you're not getting drawn into making decisions for yourself out of the mind. Now, you might get some really interesting and inspirational knowings dropping in, or not. It just depends on the pulse but you could hear some really interesting things from others. There could be some really creative thinking. And also the possibility to organize details and facts if gate 62 gets defined in your own chart. It can be a good time then for planning. With all the detriments that are going to be playing out in gate 61, that trait of mystery and inner truth, take things that people around you are saying they know with a grain of salt. There's going to be some delusional thinking and loss of connection with reality for some people. Take a breath and just let it blow through the mind. All right. Well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.